Looks like it's live. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this amazing show we're going to have. I have a very special guest on today. His name is Micah Dank. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am what's called an astrotheologist, and most of the people on this planet have no idea what that is, or they think it's made up. For the religious people, the closest they can get to understanding what I do is they think I'm an astronomer. Like I go out at night with a telescope and I'm looking at the stars, and then I read my Bible. That's what they think. But what I have done and what you have seen in my one video that I sent you is I have found a 17,000-year-old astrological keyword cipher that I have used and explain how I got to that point to break down every ancient holy text. Everything from the Sumerians, and I'm doing a live series on my YouTube and Facebook now, where I've done 3 Sumerian tablets. I've done including the Epic of Gilgamesh. I've done the Babylonian Enuma Elish and the Code of Hammurabi. Yesterday I did the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and we're going to be doing the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, except I'm interviewing Yssah tonight, so I'm going to do that tomorrow. And we're just going through history, through periods of time to show how this was encoded. Basically, using the stars, what I've done is I've taken Ptolemy, his list of 48 constellations in 150 AD. And what I have done is I've used those to show where they are located in these ancient holy texts. And that's basically what I have done. And that's what I do. And that's what I sent you. And I've done about 72 ancient holy texts so far, including all the Gnostic texts, all the ones I've previously mentioned, even the Book of Mormon, the Quran. These are all encoded in part astrology texts, and that's what I expose.
Yeah, and I just sent you the link, so it should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what got you into this work? How did your journey start?
So I'm so glad that I met you guys at the conference that we met, because like I don't have to like baby step this or sugarcoat it. I could just explain what happened. My Saturn return was at the end of the Mayan calendar. So you can imagine how powerful those energies were. And I basically had a complete and utter breakdown and break back up. When I had discovered this science and this art, I realized this was it. This is how it makes sense. This is how these ancient holy texts make sense. And everyone thought I was crazy. And I was in a hospital for 3 weeks. And I tell this to people all the time. I'm not shy. I was in a hospital for 3 weeks and everyone thought I was crazy. But while I was in there, they gave us things like, not pens, but they gave us little felt tip markers if we wanted to draw or do anything. And those little blue notebooks that you used to write essays on in college, I had a stack of them, and I wrote my first book while I was in there. And then it took me about 6-7 years to get a publishing deal. Well, I got an agent first and then a publishing deal. And now, 9 books later, I'm about to write my 10th. And I expose all this, and I talk about this all in my book series.
Lovely. Thank you for writing those. And from what I've seen in your videos, it's very expansive, well thought out, a lot of ingrained into your mind understanding for road mapping for the west of it's like a way shower, making it easy to piece together that just saves so many people so much time in their effort of diving deep into this. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. That's what I pride myself on, because there are others that do my work. Santos Bonacci, Jordan Maxwell, who passed away, David Matheson, Jason Quitt, Bill Donahue. There's not many of us that are known that do this, but there are a few. But where I excel, that I like to think, is that I break this down the easiest for people. You can explain this to a child if they watch the video. You can bring someone off the street who has no knowledge about this, and they'll leave watching that one video that I sent you, and they'll be like, there's definitely something here. And that's really where I excel, and that's where I'm humbled for my abilities to be able to break this extraordinarily complex idea down into very easy, simple to manage terms.
Yeah, it's a great video for people out there the one you sent me. I'll like bring it up on my so what's the name of the video real quick that here bring it up real quick. Actually, I'll just name it. Because the biggest hidden secret in all of human history, No Lives by Micah Dank Truth Bombs on YouTube.
Right.
Very enlightening video, very good for normies to wake up as well in the Christian church, which I'm planning on sending it to my mom because she's both into church and astrology, so that'll be great. And then expands
You'll have to
into
let me know what she says about it.
What were some of the first like signals to you in this topic that like inspired you that ignited that flame of passion in you about this subject?
Well, when I first started listening to Jordan Maxwell, he did a lecture, the first lecture I'd ever seen. I don't even know how I came across him. I must have been in the areas that he was talking about. Remember, this is in 2012. This was a long time ago. Not a lot of people were talking about this then. He made mention, he was talking about how the disciples went into town. The disciples asked Jesus where to follow him for the next Passover. And he says, go into town. You'll meet a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him into his house and go upstairs, and that is where we'll set up for Passover. And he was talking about the end of the age of Pisces and the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is the man holding the water pitcher. And he even went so far as to say back in the day, holding water or carrying water or delivering water was a female job. It was very gendered. Men wouldn't be caught dead doing this. So the fact that they mentioned a man with a water pitcher clearly mentioned Aquarius. And then it just snowballed from there. I just started seeing all these connections, all these breakdowns. It's a simple keyword cipher. That's all it really is.
Yeah, for the people that have the eyes to see. With the age of Aquarius, the great precession, equinox, the great year, and the coming of the second sun of Sirius in our binary star system, and the enfoldment of greater consciousness as that star gets closer to us in how evolution in the mind, consciousness, and
right. Well, we talk about things in
works.
the zodiac wheel, right? They're broken down into 12, and each one is 30 days long. Now, they have things called cusps or handover dates, which is the last 3 days of a sign and the first 3 days of the next sign. It's a blending of the energies until it goes from the end of one and it gives the rest of its energy, and then it comes into the next one, but it's still got some energy. That's why we're still kind of technically in the age of Pisces a little bit, because we're transitioning out of it. Now, if you have 2 3-day cycles for the 2 months, right? You have the end of 1 month, 3 days, the beginning of the next month, 3 days. That's 60 days total. So that's 6 days total. So that's 1/10. Now, how long is a zodiac sign? It's 2160 years if you're talking about the precession. So what you would do is you would divide that the same way, 1/10, and we're in the transitionary period right now, going from Pisces to Aquarius, which is a 216-year period, because it's 1/10 of the sign, and that's basically what we're in right now. This is why we still have Piscean religious energy in the back end, but a lot more people are waking up to this stuff. That's why the religious have to use words like New Age to scare people off. It's not New Age. There's nothing New Age about yoga, Tantra, the tarot, astrology. These are all ancient sciences. So what they do is it's just like the Ministry of Peace, right? Right? That's what they basically do. They just change the words and say it's New Age, and then they basically lie about it, and then they get everyone on board with it.
Exactly. Keep their sheep in the corral, mind control, which is something I'm very passionate about freeing humanity from. And I've been working on the brain and learning how to amplify memory and then remembering past the Great Awakening, which is and past the Great Forgetting, which is this big saddle that's put over humanity that causes us to forget all our past lives and all this other stuff that wasn't originally here on Earth that I found when I read enough people's DNA. I read people's DNA on the soul, past lives.
Well, let me ask you a question based on that. Do you think that um, it is necessary to lead a human life starting with a blank slate? Like, if we knew where we were going, when we were going to die, what we were going to do, what our past lives were, do you think we'd be able to function from a young age growing up? Or is this just, you think we would?
Yeah, there are some positives, but it's also a large amount of what enables negative control and domination and the harvesting of us. But the positive effects would be what's understandably needed, which is to bring the soul families of all these different places, universes, multiverses,
Right.
galaxies, stars, systems that have been at war with each other, and
So
then
you're
bring.
talking about like the Dracos, the Arcturians, the Pleiades, all those, but that's just in our
Yeah,
neck of the
yeah,
woods.
yeah,
That has
yeah,
nothing to do with,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Having their like high authorities, or at least the brave individuals that are willing to suffer and come here and forget, go through the meat
Mm-hmm.
grinder, to come into this experience that brings their whole soul family with them, essentially in to make a peace agreement by getting them to forget their war and their drama and their car and resolve their
Right.
karma and get them to eventually come to peace and unity again.
I'm under the impression that one of the reason that we're messed with so much by these entities is because Earth is a free will zone, whereas it's not a free will zone in other areas.
Yeah.
And I was also told, and I don't remember if this is by Barbara Marcinek or who, but I was told that where the Earth is strategically in the galaxy, where we're physically located, is right near a portal, which is easy for a wormhole to get through. So it's basically like if I live right off of the highway,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I'm a street over. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's a very easy exit to take.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. I agree with that. It's also a jewel of the universe. It's a library. It's a DNA vault. It seeds life to other places. It's unique in many different factors. It's a maze of discovery. It's Earth is like I believe plants are consciousness. They've actually spoken to me in very strong, like
We see that. We
moving
see that
voices.
in the way that a mother tree would favor its offspring over others when it comes to shade or it comes to
Yeah.
dropping fruit and food, things of that nature. We see that. Everything absolutely. I'm actually at the point right now where I don't think anything is not alive. Because you could
That
talk
is a
about this.
really good point. Yep,
You could talk
exactly.
about something like this, which is just a little nicotine pouch, right? But on the Planck level, it's vibrating strings that
Yeah,
is giving it its properties. I don't think that anything is outside of life, to be honest with you.
that's a really good point. I'd say there's a degree of sliding scale, but elementally there it's still life. It's still all
Yeah,
atoms are alive and all even below that in the photon. It's all connected as a point of consciousness for an experience. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely,
It's vibrating,
absolutely.
it breathes. Yep. Um, Yeah, and then going on that further point, she adopts. I found from tracking back people's DNA is like we're like the super hybrid race of at least most people have at least 10,000 lineages of different species in them introduced to them, and then some have rare ones too. Uh, that Earth has adopted a whole bunch of species and put them in a bunch of the realms, like in the tree of Yggdrasil, like the nine primary incarning realms of Earth. This is billions. She has a lot. And she puts them in different places so that they play nice or where they're supposed to be. And she likes
Right,
to save them and make sure that they continue because and then raise them up. And Sirius with the dog star also some of the planets there do that too. As an example. And then she's also acts like the root chakra for
uh-huh.
the most of existence, where she is very powerful. She's like Xena warrior princess in this like archetype.
Yeah,
She will she's strong. She's one of the her source lineage is strong in divinity. The one that people call God, that like the center of the galaxy, is a fractal, the center of the universe, fractal going up, is like connected to the source of all, but is primarily good at goodness. So, which is like the expanding quality of unity in
Right.
everything, oneness.
Well, it's funny because everything outside of human race, when it comes into existence, it automatically finds a balance and an equilibrium with nature. It's
Mhm.
almost like it
Natural
just
law.
fits in perfectly. Correct.
Yeah, exactly. It all links nature of God, natural
Mhm.
law. So like like people call Earth a prison planet and a school. I say both because she's attempting to resolve all the karma of all the most dramatic places in existence and bring them
Mhm.
all here. And then that's why most species from other stars, like, oh, I got this big warring drama and this big part of me was stolen, or I got to get this back, or I got to elevate to this level. And like, how do I do it? Go to Earth. And that's like the big solution. And then it's all this drama and big stuff that we're dealing with in reality rules. But if you get through it and you learn everything you need to know how to transcend, then you can do it pretty much everywhere else. And then
So is the dome that they would call in the Bible the firmament, is the dome over a flat earth a big psyop? If obviously other entities are coming here, do they cut through it? What are your thoughts on the firmament?
I think there's something there that like uh makes it hard to just penetrate through. I don't I think both subjects of belief have a value to bring to the equation that like expands. There's somebody that's coming up with this extra terra concept, like past the ice wall, that like goes into like other islands and realms. And I'm not really sure where they're getting their information, but I think it's interesting. I
Mhm.
like people to expand in all those perceptions. But it doesn't really matter until people get their own spaceship. So I say like build upon freedom. And in
Right.
this moment, it's just making people divide. And we should all be expanding towards figuring out the truth and
Now,
feeding on each other.
if us from this planet, like Elon Musk, if we can terraform other areas, is there a chance that those areas might not be free will areas, and we're
Mm,
in for a real big awakening when
mm.
it comes there?
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah, well, when I look into the concept of 100% free will, which we're in, which allows for abusers
Right.
to use it, and then our free will to like go resolve that. Mostly the non-free will goes into high authorities that like the prime creator of a planet, a plane, a realm, a solar galaxy, etc. And then
Right.
them putting rules down through management, and then that making the construct of the reality based on what they want. So I don't see non-free will as too negative, but it's more of like you have to do something. So people want to get away with that, so they have more free will, but with that also comes chaos. So it's like
Right.
a balance of order and chaos. If you have too much order, it's boring and also
Well, this is my whole thought process, and when the Bible talks about God and the fallen angels, right? God created the angels first, and what were they doing? They were just playing the trumpets and they were singing his praises left and right. And what happened? He
mm,
created humanity that could choose. He got bored of that. And that's like a logical step. If everything was perfect, it would have nothing to reflect for the other side. That's why evil is necessary, because it makes
yeah,
us appreciate the good and things of that
exactly. It
nature.
expands both ends. It's all ultimately connected, but it is important to delineate and make boundaries so that you can not have an incursion of harm and theft to like lower from an insane, aspect
Right,
of oneself that's a rot like a cancerous tree branch
right,
that then like turns on its own host. But then that also, the more advanced that cancer is, it teaches the angels how to become
mhm,
better healers. It's like
right,
there's a philosophy term that I've been able to solve with, can God make a unmovable objects, kind of thing.
right, right,
And the answer to that is yes, but he can train himself to eventually move it. It's like making a bigger weight that you will as a bodybuilder train up to, and that's what he wants to do, or she, whatever, wants to do to expand themselves, is make a
Well, it's a
challenge.
binary. I mean, and God has to be a binary, right? It has to be. It has to be. You know, the left, the right, the up, the down, the male, the female. They reflect each other. It can't be just a male influence that creates a female. It can't. It can't happen like that.
Yeah, and then like, so I've been seeing this, like, why is everything the way it is? And it's very complicated. That God, whatever, has been able to make a aspect of consciousness that's been able to be evil enough to wound them, and then be like an opponent on the chessboard that's a worthy opponent that, you know, strives people to be better.
Right.
And then we're like the antidote to evil, which is this super hybrid human
It's
experience.
kind of
We're
like
called this.
it's kind of like how I talk about it when I say that the kindest, most gentle people on earth are the ones who have gone through the most crap on earth. It's a level that you have to attain. You have to realize what's the other side and that you don't want it, and then you live in the light. And that's what it basically is. It is necessary for our soul growth. This is why Saturn returns happen to people, whether they like it or not. 25, 29 and a half years, 30 years, you're getting an upgrade. Something's changing in your life. You may not understand it, like I didn't at first, but it's going to happen.
Mhm. Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the people that go through hell, the people that go through their own internal or external reflective, it is that weight that makes your light stronger. It can either overtake you or it makes you immune to it. And then you learn how to integrate, and even instead of, you know, what darkness wants to change you by entangling,
right.
you
Yep.
change it, and then
Yep.
you become a cure for that, and it's beautiful. It's like
This
Nancy
is
Benning's
alchemy
everything
at its
been.
basic level. This is alchemy, is what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, you're very
Al-
versed. I love it. Yeah, and then she resolving all this crap by like kind of having a matrix kind of thing that has both an original kind of construct, hologram, and then added on virus kind of in hacking kind of bullshit going on. Of
right.
course, and then it making it hard to leave, and it kind of fucking with you, but then it being the adversary to challenge you to become better as you dance
Right.
around and figure out
Well,
how to.
that's what the word Satan means. Satan in Hebrew is Hashatan. That translates to adversary. That's all Satan is. It's what you go up against.
Right.
Two basketball teams are Satans to one another. It's not a scary word. It's not a
Yeah.
red devil with a pitchfork.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
and
really
you,
not.
you said in your video they're originally blue in the
In the
pictures.
900s, it was blue. That's why we have the Duke Blue Devils in America.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've been to, like, there's a place that I've been to that is like a compressed hellish prison. And so I learning about that made me understand how that works. There's not just like one hell, and like you were saying, it is some people even believe it's this place, and it's also the challenges, it's also internal, it's a state of consciousness. There's like, you know, 7+ secrets to every interesting
right,
word. I found with the tree of Yggdrasil when I went into the different realms, those are the neutral realms. There's also the tree of lights, the heavenly abodes, and even Christianity goes into 77+ heaven realms. The tree of death, the Kilopoth, goes into the I call it more of quarantine realms. It's where Earth puts invaders, or like every planet, like Saturn and all this other stuff, has these places they put invaders to that they see as eventually something they can turn into value and then elevate and grow. It's not like how Christians like go into it, where it's eternally you're damned or something. That's not supposed to be what it is.
no, it sounds more like purgatory than anything, to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
honest with you.
It's like consciousness is everything. There needs to be a purpose to it. Most of these places are geared towards teaching you lessons so you can eventually transcend out of them and move on to the next plane. If it's
Right.
taken over and corrupted by evil, which has existed, those I call hell realms. But
Mhm.
then they just go into suffering. But those are like rare, and that's like if like a evil and force is like able to take over a very important place, and it's not supposed to be like that. And then there's prison realms and etc. But yeah, very powerful because that can even be within. And a person can be facing that themselves, especially if they don't learn their lessons. And the last teacher, if they don't learn from it, and everything else is suffering. So that will push them to their near edge and
Well,
eventually.
isn't that the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? I mean, that is the literal definition of insanity.
Right. Yeah. So like people need to face their darkness and have that shadow work and transmute it with light and love and understand it is ultimately them because everything is you.
It reminds me of what we did when we were at the beach a couple of weeks ago, right? And everyone got together and we were just meditating and we were just doing this because it reminded me of a story of they 20, 30 years ago they flew in a bunch of Tibetan monks to Washington D.C. and they basically flew in enough of them that they filled up an entire hotel. So it was, I don't remember which hotel it was, but let's just say it was the Ramada, right? And every room was filled with monks. And what they did was for 3 days, they just prayed. They just prayed, manifested, whatever they did. And what happened was when they got the reports back, that particular weekend that those monks were in DC, crime fell 20 to 30% across the whole city. So the idea of getting together and changing reality, that's abracadabra. That's what that is.
Yeah, power of three, the going past like they're in my name, they come together. Yeah, and it's going beyond that because human consciousness, when it syncs up as atoms, they get more of a functionality brought together. And we did that with that beach and the day of being. That was beautiful because like there are a lot of things that predicted like the assassination from. Not saying that we like were like totally the only thing that
Yeah, because that
we
happened.
definitely
That
made a big
happened
one.
that happened like an hour after we left.
Yeah,
We were
yeah,
literally on the way home. We weren't even home. That happened right away. That's crazy. But who
yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't predict the assassination. Maybe it helped save him,
Yeah, it did.
turn his head, or maybe.
They like Simpsons predicted that he'd die, and they try to do that. And I also read that there's various Dark Forces that have looking glass technology, and they do certain things to make something happen. And they had like a plan with to blame it on Iran and some other stuff. But yeah, that made a whole different timeline. That was very interesting. I see it as better, but whatever people want to believe.
Right.
Because it shakes people up and makes them not asleep anymore, no matter what side a person's on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get more active and aware, which is absolutely
So
the name of the game.
if we're live right now and there's any questions, feel free to just throw them at me if there's anyone
Yeah.
out there.
So I wanted to ask you more about so like both with the Great Precession and not the regular cycle of
Mm-hmm.
the zodiac. I see the star clusters as like another aspect of the higher mind that needs to be integrated, like neurons in the brain that can be synced up for higher consciousness, like with Aquarius, us going into that, being like supplied and nourished with the ambrosia that you also went into,
Mm-hmm.
that what elevates people not from mortal to kind of immortal, but it like Aquarius going into mind, so like higher elevated mental thought and consciousness. And as we connect with each of these star clusters, which they're not all like right next to each other, but it is still a map of light coming to us in the hologram of the brain and
Mm-hmm.
time. Some of the energies they're emitting go beyond the speed of light and connect with us, and they have a consciousness and communication. And there's mystery schools to going deep into these and they can build up uh, grand awarenesses and understanding of thyself. Would you like to go into further, and then I'll ask more on the human body?
The idea. So let's start with the age of Taurus, which is where we have our history beginning. They all the all the artifacts that we found and the cultures and everything. For example, the Egyptians were the age of Taurus. That's why you see so many Egyptian hieroglyphs of the bull with the sun between its horns. You could talk about Moses coming down and seeing them worshiping a golden calf. The gold is the sun, the calf is Taurus. They were worshiping the wrong time period. The Jews are the people of Aries. That's why he was mad. That's why they put the lamb's blood on the doorpost. The lamb is a baby ram.
Scapegoat.
That's why they blow the ram's horn. Absolutely. And then the Christians come in during the age of Pisces, the age of religion, the age of belief, not knowing. That's now. But the age of Pisces was the age of belief. That's why you had all the religions for so long. And Pisces is the two fish, which is why Jesus feeds the masses with two fish, which is why he's called the fisher of men, which is why Simon Peter was a fisherman. They talk about all this stuff. And then now we're coming into the age of
bringing them out of the ocean of darkness kind of thing, too.
Exactly. And now we're entering the age of Aquarius, which is it's the sign of the man. And it's going to be the mental evolution of the man. It's going to be the way that we're speaking. It's going to cut across and start to get to other people who normally would just sit in the religious trap. People are going to be able to spiritually walk free here, but it comes with a caveat because there's always a negative for the positive. And the negative aspect that we're going to have to deal in Aquarius is the idea of merging with machines, living forever, transferring consciousness, things that sound insane, but things that are really going to happen. And, it's maybe terraforming other planets if we can get there, but it's mostly going to be an upliftment. It's going to be that the great year is 25,920 years, and we go 2,160 years every sign. There's 30 degrees in a sign, and in one sign or 1 degree in a sign is 72 years, which is the average lifespan of a man. So every 72 years we move a degree. So there's basically 30 generations in each zodiac sign. But we have, and I wrote this at the end of my first book. I said we're the only people on Earth who have literally seen the change of a century, a millennia, and a transitionary zodiac sign. And I've actually mathed this out. No other group can say that. So these are very powerful energies that we're dealing with right now. And we're just out there trying to help people with it, but they want to shut people like us down from talking about this kind of stuff. They want you to just go to school, pay your taxes, do this, just, get your 401k, deal with the problems with your insurance, all this stuff. That's all they do. They're all distractions. That's all it is.
Well said. Yeah, and that goes into a wonderful question that I talk about often. I found this is full of distractions. Like, people have the free will to go with whatever experience they want, but then eventually they die, and then they have to come back for the greater main purposes and missions that they're on here. So still distractions. Like, if they want to do it, fine, but also because they're asleep, they're giving their energy to a negative system, which ultimately harms everyone else. So they're not really entitled to that, which is why the awakening is allowed to flourish and penetrate into their bubbles of reality every now and again.
Well, this is why a lot of people have religious parents, right? A lot of people have religious parents who follow it to a T, and then they have kids that are spiritual, and you can't connect with your parents on that certain level, because some of us are here for the first time, and some of us who are here for the first time give birth to children who are here for like the 1,000th time. So we're already open to all this spiritual information. We're already open to all of this. In fact, I was told that when you die, and DMT is flooding your brain, and you see the white light, and you see your family members and come to the white light, I was told that it's a reincarnation trap. I was told that what you got to do is, when you get to that level, you need to turn around, face the universe, and ask to go back to where your soul actually comes from. So then a lot of people see the white light and they're being tricked into going into it and to reincarnating here again. But you're absolutely right, you know, and you do you do past life regressions. I know you do that. So you obviously know people who have been here a ton of times, but it's blocked off in our memory. It's blocked off in our memory. But then we see things all the time. Like you hear the story of the lady that falls down a flight of stairs, cracks her head, she wakes up speaking Egyptian, remembering where she lived, all this stuff. Science can't explain it. You know, they just unlock part of the stuff that's deep in our brain. You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's a great point too. And for those viewing that are confused and not sure what to do in death, absolutely try these things out when you die. I've seen multiple methods of success. There is an Archon grid, which is a natural a saddle put on the natural incarnating grid of Earth. Archon is Greek. It goes back to like these dark beings that were force evolved and then had their memory wiped and then put into a position where they think they're gods and management over the system, have things whispering into their ear. They're allowed on Earth because they're a lesser evil, because they're not wanting to destroy the Earth. They're wanting more of it as a harvesting prison, like a farmer, which is less worse than other things. But then it's waiting for people to take back the incarnational grid in itself and back towards the spectrum of light. Then yeah, they want people to come back in and used as batteries, and they want to consent to it. They want to put a bunch of bullshit into your contracts for a manifestation, and they want to mess with people incarnating that are very powerful beings to limit them or stop them or get them in weird scenarios where it separates them from what they're supposed to be doing here and plan, make them go from plan A, B, C, all the way to whatever they can.
Well, we are basically batteries. What happens with this thing? What happens with this thing when it overheats? It doesn't work as well. What do you have to do? You have to set it down and leave it alone and let it rest. Our brains power electricity. They're run on electricity. It's the same thing. After X amount of use, the battery starts to go, and we need to recharge it, which is when we sleep, which is when we go up. I don't know why sleep is such a controversial or weird thing. When you think about it in those terms, you understand that that's what it basically is doing.
Yeah, and it should be more free. Like, a lot of people think we're like trapped in this reality and there's nothing else. That's like what the Matrix wants. It wants you to forget about all the other existences you have, your multidimensional body, that this is a dream. It's just, and you can become lucid in it. And there are just extra steps to learn and knowing this for this game because of all the fuckery that's happened in the past.
Right. You know, they even show you this in movies too, because I don't know if you've heard of the Insidious movies, the scary movies.
Yeah.
The second Insidious movie, the plot is that they have a son who goes to sleep. Okay. They have a son who goes to sleep and he can't wake up. And so they're trying to figure it out. So they bring a lady in and she finds out that he is a master astral projector and he is lost in the realm. So they have to put the father under to go into that scary realm and save the child. They show you this in movies and people are just like, cool movie. And then they move on with their lives, not realizing what they're being told.
Yeah, it's very good soft disclosure. And going deeper into that, like I'd recommend trying your method after death, like face the stars, call that. I've also heard that there's two lights. The one that's false is more like fluorescent-y, and you want the true golden fully light. And there's also a light you can call in your heart, which is good. And you want to ask to be surrounded by your ancestors, is like your team. You want to have more than just the life review for the life you had previously. You want to have expanded awareness of why you came here. And anything less, there's probably some shady bullshit going on. So you can ask for the expandingness of that, and you don't want to consent to things until you get a full understanding why you came here. And then there's reasons for being here. So sometimes you'll end up wanting to come back, but there is a difference between going through the Archon's grid, which allows their consent bullshit, versus your full awareness, expandedness, and then incarnating in that.
And people don't seem to realize when it comes to reincarnation is that time and space is an illusion, and in a higher dimension, you can actually, time is fluid. You can go back and forth. So when they're talking about your next life, Sean, when you pass, if you're going to come back, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be here in the 22nd century. Your next life could be in the Middle Ages, you
Yeah,
know? And
absolutely.
that
I
could
see
just,
this too.
yeah, that could just be your next level of what you're supposed to do, of how you're supposed to build yourself up. I like to think of myself as somebody who's breaking the chains of my ancestors for the things they were stuck in that they weren't able to free will think
Freedom.
about.
Yeah, freedom, exactly. And a lot of the afterlife expands in freedom the more you know and have more of an successful death. I actually read this in between people's lives. If you're able to free yourself from the linear pathway of boxed inness, then I see people between their linear quote unquote lives, they go on vacation. They can go to other realms. They can leapfrog forward in the future, get like a bunch of awareness of the timeline they want to anchor into existence as their vote, and they bring that back. Or they can go in the past and resolve something. And this goes with the time travel abilities in consciousness
So,
that
since we're talking about that, let me ask you a question. Is the Vatican's chronovisor real?
yeah, oh, totally. That goes into the looking glass technology, absolutely. And then some light forces have that too, so it's not all in the hands of the dark. And then, they're expanding it more, which is upsetting. So more underground bases have it now. But that's what they want. But then if there's so many people that have them, then it now becomes its own chess game, and it's not like they have the ability to just make their timeline one thing. It just makes more expandedness so that they all have capability to fight each other in their votes.
Right.
So eventually it's just going to
Well,
fall
Back to the
apart.
Future is my favorite movie. Back to the Future is my favorite movie, and it does one of the best things in the world, which shows what it would be like if you actually met your previous self. You know, what the damage, what would happen to the universe if you did that. It's the grandfather problem, right?
Oh yeah. They're when I read, because I do like observing time and stuff. There are paradoxes, and they make we actually as humanity have most people on this planet have paradoxes in them. They're like bleeding wounds in time, asking to be resolved. They're stored in the navel, and they have to do with big events, time loops, things that need remedy in like the solution in order to it. It also has to do with like meeting other version of yourself, splitting, all this weird shit that happens that people don't know that happens like through temporal dilation, where if a species advanced enough, they can just take you and then put you back to a holographic image of yourself when they took you and memory wipe and put it in an altar, and then
Have you
it
read
barely
Talbot's?
affects the game at all, and then you just have it stored and you have some emotion, and sometimes that bleeds over and then you remember it. But like a lot of the time they do that so they don't mess with this game, because if you mess with the game and the timeline too much, you get attention, and that like messes with it. So a lot of the beings that look at people that are like big movers and shakers in time, if you get enough attention, you're probably going to get visited by someone, and you might not
Absolutely.
even know it.
It reminds me of the movie Inception with DiCaprio. That if
Yeah.
you're causing too much of a scene, everyone's going to start taking notice of you.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, and
They
then
show you all this stuff.
yeah. And I find if people want to somehow mess with another version of themselves, or another past life of themselves, the military's solution to that is avatar transferring your consciousness to a different body that looks different, and then you interacting with that or a relative, and then it doesn't seem to that much affect it, but it does
Have
have
they been
a big
doing that in? Have
interesting
they been doing
spiritual
that?
interaction.
Have they been doing that in politics and entertainment? Like where you see like the 8 different faces of Joe Biden, and you're like, come on, or like things like that. Are they at that point yet?
I With time travel, I don't know exactly what's going on with that. He's really haunted, so I try not to entangle with him. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's like the CIA masks, there's body doubles, there's clone possibility. There's a certain value to the original though that is needed for a timeline anchor. So if there's too much messing with that throws things off. So I don't go super deep with the cloning, But there does exist. And then they can I've also had a weird period in my life where I had different freckles move on my body, and I have weird long hairs that are very distinct on my body move or go away for a period of time. And when I read into it, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And I'm like, oh shit, this is, and then if people want to believe this is up to
Mhm.
them, but like this is just what I read from it, that my original body was damaged for a bit and it's repairing, or something fucking with it. And I had to be in a switched body for a bit, and then I did a bunch of work, and then it shifted again, and then the hair came back, and I'm like, what?
Mhm.
Okay. And there is a value being to the original
Yeah.
body. So people, if they have that belief, they
Mhm.
can shift it back again.
So it's
Um,
interesting because my mom, what my mom does, one of the things that she does is she does she works with an astrologer and she does generational work, where basically she works to heal the trauma that is passed down in my DNA from my ancestors. She works to remove that. So that's what she basically does, and it's been great so far. I don't for my work. I don't get death threats. I don't get. I really don't. I really truly don't.
it's
As
probably very
wildly.
much needed on the timeline. Oh, and yeah, going back to, because I want to like ask you like powerful questions.
Sure.
In I People like, Santos Bonacci go into the concept of that, the Aries is the crown and then going down, and the
Yeah.
Gemini and the heart Leo, and
Right.
Pisces being the feet, and Aquarius being the shin area. What do you see in the elevation of us going towards that in the great year, as well as what have you tuned into for the esoteric anatomy in going deeper, like with the Christos and elevating that, and
Well,
other
they
things that you found in the Bible?
sure they show some stuff. Like I mean, obviously the heart of the lion. Um, Aries is the head, and the god of Aries, or the ruling planet of Aries, is Mars, the god of war. That's why we are hot-headed.
Mhm.
Pisces, the feet in the water. That's why we have cold feet. So it does line up. All the stuff that's made its way into our conversations that we don't know where it comes from, like the heart of a lion, the Lion of Judah, all comes from that. Um, where we are going, well, they're trying to keep us in the root chakra. And what is the root chakra? That's your sex organs, right? That's red and yellow. Those are the bottom two. And if you
Mhm.
look at things like fast food companies, right? Fast food companies are all red and yellow. And psychologists will come out and say that's because they make you hungry. It's not because they make you hungry. It's because they're the lower chakras. There's no nutrition in there. There's no food. There's nothing good in there. And they're just basically telling you. Remember, Sean, the world becomes much easier to decode and figure out when you realize that everything is spiritual. You just have to find it. Everything they do, everything they show is a mock, or it's an inversion of something that's spiritual. Everything. The Egyptians used to do this with shipbuilding. The Egyptians used to build ships with, like, the innards would be God's innards. The flag would be the mind, or the sail would be the mind of God. They always incorporated this kind of stuff into it. And as we're going into the age of Aquarius, I'll give you this quote that I gave your girl that she liked and she made me send it to you. It's from a guy named Arthur Schopenhauer. And he said, well, I'm going to read it to you word for word. Hold on. I'm going to read it to you word for word. Three stages of truth. Arthur Schopenhauer said all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as self-evident. So where are we with our work as far as society is concerned? Is basically what you want to ask yourself. Because remember, there's something called the 20% rule, Sean. And the 20% rule says that if you're trying to change the world, you do not need to convince 100% of the people of one thing. What you need to do is get to 20%. Many studies have been done on this. You hit 20% of the population, and then the rest absolutely goes.
Yeah. Leaders versus
Naturally.
bird. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, and then you remind me of another thing onto that, but and then feel free to bounce back to the esoteric anatomy. Like a question I love to ask is, seeing as this is a world full of distractions, what do you think is and everyone has a different answer, and you can constantly go deeper into this. What do you think is the thing behind all distractions? Or the things?
I have recently been made aware of a similar group of humanoids, the ones with the elongated skulls, called the Homo capensis.
Woo, you know about them. The Syrian. Yeah.
And I have not gone too deep into that, but it's credible. I mean,
I also heard they're like connected to the elongated skulls and what people call the Tuatha De Danann and the luminescent beings, or the fairies, the fair skinned, the fair haired, and like J.R.R. Tolkien, they're connected, and the Homo capensis is connected. So like, and pointy ears don't show up in fossil records, even if it's not them. And there's concepts of a higher human in inner Earth and in other.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I heard it from a very credible source, and you confirming it just tells me that I'm on the right direction. What they use to control us is religion, which is why I've made it my life to speak out against it with my work.
Yeah, religare, tie and hold back from free spirituality and expansion. And Christians do great. I love Christianity, esoteric Christianity even more. But
my favorite people
code,
are Christian mystics. Christian mystics believe in astrotheology. Christian mystics believe that Christ is a cosmic being, which I've seen a lot of evidence to say the Christ in the Bible is a plagiarized version of this cosmic soul that is actually out there, that has come to people at different stages, in different avatars, in different looks, and people don't know any better but then to worship him when they flat out tell you, look inside.
Exactly. It's the avatar of everyone. So like I have a lot of clients that like, oh, I think I'm Jesus. You technically are. They're literally the amalgamation of source of all. And everyone has the ability to become and earn through action and elevation, the integration of being an avatar of the source of all. And it's calling you to do that by going within your heart. And so everyone can do that. So it's like people are kind of misinterpreting what that is, but the beings that have shown themselves through action, through incredible change that elevates people that look upon them. And there's many avatars of this throughout time that have integrated this, and everyone can do this. And I wish
that's the problem they do. They come here and they tell you to love yourself. They come here and they tell you to love yourself. And us, with our limited understanding, I'll give you a story. There is a group of indigenous people in Australia, right? That 100 years ago, a plane came to them and dropped off a bunch of food, a bunch of things, a bunch of this, that, and then left. This isn't the kind of place where like Christian missionaries go and they get killed. This was just an indigenous group of people. And what they found when they came back 50 years later was there was carvings on the wall that the people from outer space came and brought them gifts. It's that humanity refusing to look inside and love thyself and instead worship externally. And that's like the biggest problem. How that is the problem. That is the problem. That's why they tell you, know thyself.
Yeah,
that's why that's so important. Know thyself. Know who you are. Love yourself. Because once you realize that you love yourself, you realize that everything in the past that has made you who you are, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything has made you who you are. And you can now accept yourself as a whole. Whereas if you're not doing that, maybe you're stuck on past issues. And you know what that brings? Alcoholism, drug addiction, distractions, things that keep you away from your true nature. And they
Exactly.
love that stuff.
Yeah, non-holistic thinking, and which is ultimately what is the crux of moral code is if you see yourself constantly as everyone, you don't get into drama. You don't want to cause others harm, which is I had to ingrain that strongly because there are forces that want to get you to forget about that in ego. And when you integrate in wholeness of this person seeing like Abraham Lincoln went into, I hate that person. I must get to know them better. If you
Yes.
don't know somebody, then you tend to go into the polarization because you
Right.
don't know yourself. And then as you understand and grow and integrate, you become more whole because everything externally has an internal representation in you. And you become more and more whole as you come in unity with boundaries so that the evil doesn't take over. But you get it to where everything eventually likes you, where it doesn't need to do that, and you bring healing to it. And then it goes
We
outward, and then you integrate with the whole universe, and then go into the stars themselves and integrate that in wholeness.
we are a universe within ourselves. Have you ever seen what a red blood cell, all the parts of it put together, how it all works together? Have you ever seen a neuron carrying a little filament of dopamine across? They have little videos of this. I should be able to find one. I'll send it to you. But it's this little dude with 2 feet walking with the neurotransmitter, handing it over. There's a whole universe within us. And people don't look inside. People just make it easy. That's my God. Don't talk about him. Don't talk bad about him. He has done this for me. It's all falling apart, Sean. This is a wonderful time to live in.
Yeah, and even with like the other gods, like for people to understand in the integration of wholeness, the source of all emanates in this branch. Like even in like if people want to go into the concept of the Big Bang, even though it's not exactly like that, even in the expansion and the explosion of everything, it's all connected. Science goes into the quantum physics of a photon having the evidence that is all like quantumly entangled with all other photons in existence and shares a holographic
Which is
nature and
funny because
expand.
if these people believe that everything started in the singularity, and these people believe in science, well, the science will tell you that everything is entangled. I mean,
Yeah.
I talk about this in my What is God presentation that I do. I talk about it. I said the furthest point that me and you could be at, according to geneticists, is 50th cousins. And if your parents both grew up in the same country, there's a 20% chance that they share an ancestor 10 generations back.
That's a good point. I ran into some friends that would just call everyone cousin, and I was like, oh, really? I wonder what. And they're like, okay, now it makes sense. We're all connected. Even like if you believe in different origins of stars, like there's ultimately going back to one. And even the different pantheons of gods, they ultimately go back to a oneness. They were even if they're egregores or people made them up, or like they're an avatar of a person that was deified. It's all ultimately a branching of the tree of all existence of life that goes back to all of consciousness. And they're all like either granted authority in something that made them stand out as that, and people go to that to like elevate themselves in that particular subject or whatever. And then there's dramas because they get wounded and attached, and they get taken over, and there's evil that fucks with them. And everyone has their shadows, and as long as you have boundaries with integration as well as then expansion, unity, and trade and commerce, and you can expand past that. But then, and then for the people that say there's just one above all, or just like no other God, the Bible has like got 6+ gods. They merged into one, and I'm going through it and like naming what quotes by different avatars or pre-surf prophets, who was talking into their ear, which God was doing that, and if it's the one above all, if it's the anti-verse version of that, if it's Enlil, if it's Amen, if it's the
I mean, they tell you flat out that they worship Yahweh. Yahweh is a
yeah,
Phoenician Canaan deity.
yeah,
He
yeah.
is. So
And
was
you
Baal.
see
So
that
was
Yah
Moloch. Yeah.
Have you seen that imprint in our DNA that has the stamp of Yahweh? There's more than one stamp, but
Show me. Show me.
oh
Show
yeah,
me.
I'll
Send it
show
to
it to
me.
you later. Yeah.
Yeah, send it to me later.
Yeah. And so there's this merging, and it's like I understand why they want to do it. It's like because there is a prominence to monotheism, which is good because I like going in within and being whole in one. So I do recommend that. But like you also want to know all other understanding and beliefs so that you don't fall into any belief system traps or dogma or limitation.
Right.
And that's what Christ did because he traveled all over the place, besides
Mhm.
the one that you were talking about the prince of the Pope that is the false one
Mhm.
that they put over
Well,
that.
that the biggest trap that you can fall into is I have the answer. That
Yeah.
is the biggest trap because then your thinking shuts off and then you do not grow as a human being for the next 40 or 50 years, however old you are. You
Mm.
always have to be willing to evolve your thinking. You have to be open to new examples. The reason I did my work and my website is called debunkmywork.com is I went into this going, disprove me. Not this is what happened. I said, this is what I found. This is what I see. Disprove me. And you know what? Nobody has been able to do that yet. So it's a little tongue in cheek. I have an acting background, so it's a little theatrical. I get it, but that's what gets people going,
Oh,
you
that's
know?
cool. Nice. What kind of acting did you do?
Um, I was in high school and early college. I was an Abercrombie store model, and I was working. I was an active worker in the city, in New York City, for years. I would do student plays. Plays. I would do short videos. Like we had Columbia University and NYU, two of the biggest film schools in the country,
Hmm.
right there, like 80 blocks apart from each other. So I would just jump on the subway, go do one, go do another. It was like a lot of stuff. So I had a small role in Catch Me If You Can. I was in the Emperor's Club. I was on the poster of the Emperor's Club. I I did that, and then obviously the world took me sideways, and I went away to college. I went to upstate New York, and I became an English major, and I just started reading everything, and then it just opened my mind. When I started reading, I didn't start reading and getting involved into all this stuff until I was in my 20s. I discovered, you remember spirit science, Patchy?
Yeah.
I discovered that when I was like 23 years old. That was like some of the beginning of my understanding. That's based completely off The Flower of Life by Melchizedek. And it was just so fascinating, and I loved it. So I just started going down these rabbit holes. And then, well, that's got to be everybody's story, right? Because see, this is the thing. When you start going down rabbit holes, you can't fall into the mind trap that everything on earth is a rabbit hole. Because
Hmm.
the second you realize you were lied to, you think you were lied to about everything, and you were lied to about a lot, but not everything. And there's some people that can't get out of the rabbit holes that are so far down they don't even make sense.
Hmm.
And that
There's a
is the
vision.
people those are the people who we're being represented by people who don't understand us. They're pointing to those lunatics and going, that's what they talk about, stay away from them.
Yeah, I find the signs of when it's too deep into like a trap is when it's in division and limitation, and
Mm-hmm.
keeps you from integrating all perspectives and understanding why they believe that. And
Right.
then that's how you dig yourself out, is bringing yourself to unity and seeing more sides, because that's how a
Mm-hmm.
cult works. And
Right.
you brought up a great and thank you for bringing that to attention. And acting is so beautiful. It integrates all the archetypes that you integrate into your mind,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts unfolding past lives. It opens the doorways, and the world is a stage.
Yeah. We're all actors playing our part, and it's true.
Yeah. Allows you to like see more of another person's perspective as well. You also wanted again to Yeah, and for all the I'll be doing more esoteric Christian videos and stuff, because and I want to be in unity because I love them, and they're doing a good part for a lot of people. They're keeping back the darkness, but it's the Bible can free you or it can enslave you. It depends on
Yes.
how like ingrained into it and taking it
Well, the
literally.
people I talk to, I don't talk to religious people. I don't talk to religious people because they're happy in what they have, supposedly, even though a lot of them are ruled by fear. I don't really talk to them. The people that find me are the people who are either leaving the religion and have nowhere to look, or they're questioning things, or they just don't understand things. Those are the people I talk to. You have to have an open mind to see what I've found. You have to.
Right.
So I try and keep that.
You went well into describing how the Bible's been edited multiple times, and the ones that are editing that, like King James, and going into how
King James was a
defining
homosexual
serpent.
demonologist, by the way.
Yeah. And I got his demonology book. It's not that great. It's very small, and yeah, it's not that interesting. But and you went into that they changed the original verse of it being a sin to lie with a small boy into just to like cutting off gay sex, which then allows more division, which allows the rulers to overtake. I have not seen being gay as a sin. There are heaven realms that allow people into them that are gay. It's more based on moral code and what else you're accepting in.
Well, some Christians will say a sin is a sin is a sin is a sin. They'll just say, look, you're sinning. You know what? I'm smoking, and that's a sin. Or this and that. A sin is a sin. You have other people like the Westboro Baptist Church, GodHatesFags.com. They go the other way with it. There's a wide range of people. Okay? The Westboro Baptist Church people are not the ones you want to stick with.
Right. And there's 4,000 denominations of Christianity. They fight each other, and they all think the other ones are going to hell because of little misperceptions. It's like, come on, let's come to unity and figure out what the truth is, and let's all sit at a table. Then eventually, let's all sit at a table with other religions, talk out our the things that divide us, and then we'll figure out who's trying to rule us. We'll figure out
what you were talking about before was the word arsenokotai. Arsenokotai is a Greek word, which means boy lover. It doesn't mean gay. Now, who would benefit from changing the Bible from saying to saying that homosexuality is bad versus pedophilia is bad? They got rid of the pedophilia part. Now, who benefits from that? The pedophiles.
Right, yeah, and then it goes into the divining serpent, the Vatican, and how it is taken, and same thing with other religions. There is a force that's taking over each of them, using them for control and boxing them in the original message, whatever it may be, or maybe there is corruption in the beginning of them, of course, and then dividing them constantly to have power. So what do you think on that too?
I agree. There's very few things that I disagree with you on. The more that we talk, I realize that because we all come to, if you're coming from a place of peace, then I know that you've studied the right things. That's basically the way I see things.
Right. Oh, and we got a question coming in. Hello, question. Is there a connection between the naming of the planets and astrology names to those beings they purported to represent? I think he's talking about like the Greek and Roman mythos. Love to hear your perspective.
Well, you guys have to remember is that back in the day, let me just do this correctly. 1 second. Okay, so back in the day, guys, you know how we have 8 planets now? Pluto was one of them, but it was removed because it was a dwarf planet, even though Pluto weighs heavily on astrology charts. But you guys have to understand is that they didn't have all the planets back then. They didn't have access to them. They didn't have Neptune. They didn't have Uranus. They had Mercury, Venus, Earth. Nobody named Earth, by the way. You want to see a real interesting deep dive? Try to find out who named Earth Earth, because it's not from here. It's not named from here. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. That's the 5. 6 and 7 were the sun and the moon. Those were them. Whereas now we have Uranus and Neptune. And I was talking to my astrologer friend, my good friend Priscilla, who explained to me that it's kind of like when they discover a new part of the body and they attribute a bunch of, like a couple of years ago, they discovered a new lens or there was a new filament to your eyeball. Some guy discovered it, and they were able to immediately address a bunch of different conditions they had no idea for based on it. It's the same thing with astrology. When Pluto came into the mix, suddenly we could ascribe a bunch of other things to Pluto because we knew it was there. But in regards to the planets and how they were named, I'm not too familiar with that, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But what I can tell you this is what these ancient people used to do, because ever since the Industrial Revolution, we've had air pollution. You know, you can look up in the sky now and not see anything, but thousands of years ago, before air pollution, before any of that, they could look up at the stars and they would see everything. This one would be dancing, this one would be moving, and they'd make it up. They'd make up stories. So they go from the Greeks to the Romans, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Sumerians. They all had different stories. They were all telling the same story, though. With the same map about the sun, they were able to do that. And that's what it is. It's basically, it's a farmer's almanac and star poetry that people take literally. But as far as the original names, not too familiar with the origin of the original names because they've all been called different things. You know, you got to look at the great picture instead of just why did the Greeks call it this? Incidentally, the Greeks, by the way, the gods, right? They were supposedly on Mount Olympus, right? Well, did you know that Mount Olympus is actually a real place? Mount Olympus is a real place. Nobody thought to go up there and check to see if Zeus was up there. Nobody went up there.
And if you want to go, we're going to eventually plan a trip there and go to the sacred places and get some attention for, you know, the planets. And there's some interesting portals there. So let
Keep me
me
posted on
know,
that.
Micah, if you feel like going, and anyone else out there, contact us.
Yeah, definitely keep me posted on that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer that question 100%, but I can point you in some directions. This right here that I have here that you can't really see, this is Ptolemy's list of 48 constellations from 150 AD. They listed out what they knew. And I have broken it down into, for example, Auriga is known as the charioteer. That's in Gemini. And then Sagittarius is the horse, the man on the horse with the bow and the arrow. So when they're talking about horses and chariots, horses and chariots, horses and chariots in the Bible, the horse is Sagittarius, the chariot is Auriga, which is in Gemini. Those are opposing signs on the zodiac wheel. So they make these patterns when they're talking about these key words. And that's basically what I've done.
To go off that question, it's a big topic, so I can't like name everything about it. And this is my perspective, so like take it with a grain of salt, and like we
Sure.
Dressing back and forth for anyone. I've heard so many different perspectives on this topic, who the gods are, all that. So I'm not like in disunity with that. I actually love the exploration of all these opinions. My current one that I'm going towards is the planets are represented in these gods. And like you've gone to, a large percentage of the stories are star poetry. And
Right.
then like explaining things and then it being misinterpreted, and it's like how to interact with gods. The planets have a big effect on this world. They are conscious. They're very alive. They're very interesting. They have influence. They also incarnate into many of the species here. Earth has incarnation. Saturn does. All these different planets have whole branches of themselves incarnating animals and humans and all this stuff. And sometimes they either have a main like they're the sovereign incarnation, or they will see heroes or interesting figures through time, and they'll be part of their collective in their heart, and
Mhm.
see them as a big chess move to expand and empower to do great things.
Well, in the
Like
Bible,
celebrities
in the
or
Bible,
join.
in the Bible, they mention the Elohim, and they say, "Let's make man in our image." It's not in my image; it's in our image. El in Hebrew was Saturn. Okay, this is why the Jews wear a black circle on their head, a little
Moon,
kippah.
Isis, Ra, Sun,
Yeah.
El, yeah, Israel,
El is
Saturn worship.
Saturn, right? Ohim is putting an S at the end of a word in Hebrew. So it's talking, Elohim are the planets. Let's make man in our image. That's what they're talking about. People just take Elohim as God, and they ignore the fact that it says in our image, and they make it in my image. Now they have become like us. They say that in the Bible. Of course the energies do. That's how astrology came
Yeah,
about.
if you take one of the planets out, we would manifest differently in a body. This is like a whole scientific thing to the stars
Oh,
and
absolutely.
the dewdrops and programming them. And like same thing with the fetus exiting the womb. And the planets that have been destroyed in our solar system that are the meteorite belts, there was a big shift in our physical manifestation that I read, as well as mind.
Absolutely.
Like fractures are
But they
being.
also say that the moon crashed into Earth at one point and then pulled back.
I've heard that. I'm staying open to it because there's like over 10 different beliefs on the moon. The moon is a
Right,
big mystery, but there are things we will all agree on in
right.
evidence. So like I like building up. I do read it's very old. It's so and I read it's been multiple places besides the solar system. That's what I'm allowed to say. But I want to read into its entire history before I like go into my personal belief on it,
Okay.
because bits and pieces, because it's got a long history. It's kind of near. It's in a coma and it's been taken over and it's being abused, but it's still a very powerful positive effect on Earth in unfoldment of life and our biology and our psychic capacity and empathy and emotions.
Okay.
And so there's good and bad, and as it
Just
rises.
heads up, Sean. I have about 10 minutes left or so.
Right. Thanks for bringing. Okay, yeah. So Greek stuff, yeah. I think there's avatars for the planets that they have made that are some are at higher level and some are in human form that shift the planet dramatically, and people have made history off that besides the star poetry. The
My
star poetry is
favorite
more
point,
than 50% though.
my
Um,
favorite thing about the planets that everybody talks about is they always show them and they're round and they're perfectly round and they're all this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to talk about flat Earth. I'm not going to talk about that. But what I will tell you is 4 of the planets are gas giants. Do you really think they're in a perfect sphere?
that's interesting. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, and so like going more into the mystery school, what do you know about the Christos and elevating it? Because I wanted to get that subject, and then
The
I'll let you know your
Christos,
stuff.
the Christos is a sacred oil that comes up Jacob's ladder, or your 33 bones in the spinal column. That's why there's 33 degrees in masonry. The 33rd bone is right here. It's the base of your skull. I hope everybody that's listening knows that your spinal column goes into your brain, which is why when they snap your neck, you die because they broke off that connection. The Christos comes up and it reaches your pineal gland and it gives you the explosion. It's the Christ. It's what it basically is. The thing is that, and I tell people this all the time. When you're a teenager and you're in your early 20s, a lot of people will try and push ecstasy on you, the drug, to take. And ecstasy is the worst drug on the planet for you to take. Not, and you could say fentanyl, you can say propofol, sure, but they don't do what ecstasy does. What ecstasy does is it dries up your cerebral spinal fluid, and you don't get that shit back if it dries it up. That's the first thing it does is it dries it up. So you're going to have osteoporosis later. You're going to have issues. But more importantly, the sacred oil is not going to flow up the Jordan River to make its way to your pineal gland. The Christos is a very sacred. A lot of people, they teach you to meditate. You can rise it. There's different things that people can do to do that. I don't go too deep into that. I do talk about the pineal gland a little bit, how it's piezoelectric and things of that nature. But when you guys dream and you have a very, very intense dream, that is because DMT is flooding your brain, which is produced by your pineal gland. That is causing you to dream. If you do not dream, you will not have a wake-sleep cycle that is normal. You will be that dude with the bags, with the coffee, forever. You see this with people who have to have their pineal or parts of their pineal removed. Okay, that real intense psychedelic experience is what happens when your pineal gland, when the oil, the chrism, the sacred Christ, raises all the way up here.
Well, thank you. And I go into, like, I would like to ask you what you think is a meditation that amplifies into connecting in wholeness with the rest of the universe and the greater brain of the astrological, theological system and the stories that are hidden in the Bible and other places. For me, a good meditation is in reception. It's like 90% through the DNA, 9% the chromosomes, 1% the receptive cells, receptor cells of the body. And be one, the equation is to be one with the place you're trying to integrate, like the star system. Like you're seeing this big ball of a soul part that is yourself ultimately, or you've been there, or you have lives there. If it's like a star system, etc., there's a whole bunch of information. It's a big ass ball. It's like you're integrating it in a hug and wholeness. And then being open to that integration, because there's a lot of things that want to limit it, like an hourglass. Faith, these are fuels for it. Faith, unconditional love and gratitude, and then and then it needs to be protected. There's like 66 plus blocks on keeping the greater universe integration, many different types. And you need to like reverse them, get them off you, counter them, destroy them with a loving fire coming off you. It's like a sun that's able to destroy all the suppressants, as well as uncreate them if they're really evil. Or and then having a fortress container for the part to feel safe in, and loving detachment, which is part of the pathway to enlightenment. What have you
solar plexus right here? It's the solar plexus. This is why when we meet new people or we're nervous, we do this, because we're protecting it. This right here, to the solar plexus right here. What you need to do, and I'm talking about people who may have never meditated. I physically don't meditate. I do it a different way. I found other ways that worked for me. For example, when the sun is coming up in the morning, watch the sun for about a minute or two. And then you can keep building up this tolerance to it because the rays aren't that strong in the morning. I'm not telling you to do this at noon when it's up there, especially in Florida. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you to watch the sun in the morning. The other thing that you can do, guys, get rid of, what do you call it? Fluoridated toothpaste. You have no idea how bad that is for you. It is so bad. It is calcifying your pineal gland. Children, pineal glands aren't calcified. This is why they always see grandma in the corner, and the cat's looking at it too, or they're telling you their past lives, because they haven't been broken down like this with all the stuff that tries to keep you from being the pure spirit energy that you are. What I tell people to do is to fire gaze. You can buy a candle, preferably non-scented though, because that's going to kind of throw off your attention. Get like a candle from Yankee Candle or whatever. Light it and watch the flame for half an hour. Your blood pressure will go down. Your awareness will increase. You will be able to see things. Have a bonfire outside and watch the fire dancing. This is what Burning Man used to be. Burning Man used to be that big thing. Everyone would watch it, have a good time. Now it's just an orgy. They ruined it completely. Burning Man is shot. But that's what you guys basically do. Get rid of that. Get rid of aspartame. Get rid of aspartame entirely. That causes Parkinson's. Actually, it doesn't even cause Parkinson's. Aspartame poisoning mimics Parkinson's so well that it's always misdiagnosed as such. So stop doing that. I'm not going to tell you to be vegan or just be careful with what you put into your body. Just be careful with it. That's all I'm trying to say. And it's really easy for you guys to just light a candle, you know, while you're in the bathtub, women or men, while you're just watching, you know, while you're just hanging around. Just watch the fire. It changes your physiological body. You take less breaths. You start to breathe like an athlete. An athlete's heartbeat is not 30 or 45 times a minute. It's like 15. So what you really need to do is just avoid the stuff that we've been telling you to avoid from the beginning. It'll take a little while, but there's cleaners too. Look up how to decalcify your pineal gland. And let me tell you a real-time example what happened to me, just so that you guys understand. When I write my books, they're over there. When I write my books, I just feel a little pressure right here. And I just feel like things are just coming down in through the top. And I feel that. My first book took me 2.5 years, or 2 years to write. Well, not technically. I wrote it in the hospital, but it took me 1.5 years to edit because I was so nervous. I wanted it perfect. My 7th book took me 19 days. I was just a conduit, you know? And if you guys want to make that kind of connection with what they tell you is evil, which is not, do that stuff. Fire gaze. Get rid of aspartame. Get rid of fluoride entirely. Get a reverse osmosis water filtration system. Because people are like, all right, well, I'm not brushing my teeth with fluoride, but then they go and drink sink water. It's the same stuff. So anyway, that's just basically what I do.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, and I love the fire gazing because that also adds and fills up the light in the mind, which then allows greater visions to be unfolded through the ink block test light. How can people get a hold of you and reach you and plug all your information?
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. If you're interested, I can talk to you further. I can share you the video that I shared with Sean. My website is debunkmywork.com. If you go to that website, you will see all my social media tags on it, a way to email me at the bottom. You'll see my YouTube channel. You'll see all the astrotheology books that I have broken down so far on there. And there's a countdown for a big marketing thing that's going to happen too. So that's basically where all my books are there. It's a series. You have to read them in order. Imagine if Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code, and George Orwell, 1984, had a baby with young, wise-ass kids. The same type of stuff. That's the series that I wrote.
Well, and what emails do they use to reach you? And you're on Facebook? And what other projects do you have coming up?
I'm going to be writing my 10th book soon, but I just started reading the Picatrix. And I'm reading Mere Christianity because I want to explain this to people. Just a lot of stuff coming up.
What email can they reach you at?
They can reach me at intotherabbitholeseries@gmail.com, which is also on my website. If you go to the very bottom of it, there's a section where you put your name, the subject, and a message to me. That goes to my email, and then I can reply to your email.
Lovely. And any events you're going to or plan on possibly doing because you're going to do eventually your own presentation?
Eventually, I'm going to do my own presentation. Between me and you, Sean, and the universe, I am going to be basically waiting to start pushing my stuff onto people, for example, until after my marketing thing in November. So for the time being, I'm going to write my 10th book. I already let my agent and my publishing house know. They've already sent me the contract. I signed it. I'm going to start writing it. And That's it, man.
And thank you for giving us copies of the two of your books. Appreciate it.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm Sean Bond of PsionicLeague, PsionicLeague.com, PsionicLeague YouTube. You can get on Facebook as well. We get courses. We got a mystery school going on and a workshop. Got products online for many psionic abilities if you want to learn this stuff. We're doing trips to different sacred places of power around the planet. We're doing Mexico pyramids next if you want to upgrade, awaken the place, and give it love and protection, fortressing.
Do you have any plans on going? Do you have any plans on going to the caves in Ecuador?
Probably. We're marking as many places and playlists on the map when we get
Okay.
enough.
If that ever comes into play, please let me know.
I'll put you down for that. Thank you. Yeah, and then beautiful. So let us know if you're interested in those trips and give us an inquiry, and we might have Mike on for Ecuador. So look forward to that and do an inquiry. And we'll have mystery schools and teaching many of these things. You can contact me for consultations, healings, clearings, and teach a bunch of abilities. And yeah, smash that like. Leave a comment and tell us, show Micah some love and let us know what you think of his work. And share this video with as many people as possible. The more we see and views and the more nice comments, we'll know that you want to have him on again, and we'll have him on. And yeah, love you all. Thank you all for coming. Expand your knowledge, become aware of yourself and your greater universe within. Anything you want to leave them off with in a quote or something to hang on to?
Yeah. It's from a guy named John Dominic Crossan. It's one of my favorite quotes. And he says, "It's not that these ancients told literal stories and we're smart enough now to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally."
Well said. Yes. Let's expand into that knowingness and search deeper, because it's ever expanding, wonderful truth rabbit hole. Thank you all for coming. Hope you have a wonderful day.